What's up, guys? It's Joe with Schematic Solutions, and we're going to be diving into a back test for US30 for this week. So just like always, we're going to pretty much start off at a slightly higher time frame. We'll sit at about the 4 hour. Let me turn off my sessions. Perfect, perfect. So ultimately, as of right now, what would you guys say our structure is overall? Would we be able to agree this is our low before it, and this is our high maintaining? And ultimately, once we measure out this drive, just so we have an understanding of where we are within it, we see we're above 80%, right? So it's definitely time to start looking for some type of short opportunities if the distro occurs. As we scale down to the 1 hour, looking into the extreme, would we be able to agree that there's some type of schematic here? And we could honestly say there's multiple, but as far as bigger picture, here's the first one. We have our climax to our AR. This gives us our defined trading range. So climax to AR, we have a secondary test. Our up thrust, do we trade back? We just barely miss it. I'll say it counts as an up thrust, and then obviously this would be our UTAD. So at this point, what I'd be measuring out is this here. So 50 and 80%, and we do see we are coming up into 80% of this distro here, right? Coming right up into it. So as price comes up into it, we'll be watching for a potential schematic, and we'll look to play it from there. Now, we do see we have, like, if we were to scale down a little lower, we have a potential distribution and some definite redistribution. So let's scale down here really quick, and let's remember exactly 21 November 10. Okay. So as we scale down, we'll probably be able to go down to maybe something like the 5 minute. Not gonna push my luck too much. But as we scale down, let's see what we see. So ultimately, we have compression consolidation. We have a large up thrust. Is this our up thrust? We have a large UTAD. Now, with that being said, what confirms it is this break. So we need this break, and obviously it comes around eventually. So we understand, ideally, as price, or ideally, first things first, this isn't the cleanest schematic. But then as price is pushing its way down, we're playing order flow. If we measure the redistro out, play 50 and 80, or we just miss 80% of it, but we play 50% of it. If we measure, continue playing order flow, we play order flow here, we play into 80% of that. Measure this order flow, we haven't played into this. So now something that we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on is potentially this 50% and potentially this 80%. Now, let's say we're looking to place some type of extreme limit. If we're looking to place some type of extreme limit, ideally I wouldn't want to see price push above here, correct? And the reason why is this is that last point of order flow. Everything else above this has been mitigated. So 50 and 80% covering this high. So maybe we look at splitting our risk between 50% here covering this high and 80% here covering this high. So I deleted the overall 80% line. We have the lower time frame, 50 and 80%. So as we scale back up to something like the 1 hour, something like the 1 hour, coming back, we can now scale into the 5 minute, and we have an area that we're looking for a schematic at, right? Now let's see if we get those schematics. And first things first, do you guys want to play throw a limit at this? Realistically, do we want to throw limits off of this move all the way back here, or are we looking to just wait for a schematic? Me personally, I say throw the limits. I personally didn't have these set. I went back and actually back tested these positions, but I'll be able to let you guys know the positions I actually took. But let's say we're just placing them. So we're going to place our entry here, stop loss right above this line, and same thing here. Now, at the same time, we're going to be watching for a schematic right now. So as we scale down, allow price to play. Okay, this could possibly be a schematic. Hold on, let's pause it. So this here could be our schematic, and we have a potential climax to AR, which could be our trading range. Now, ultimately, what I'm going to do at this point, set my alert at the top of the trading range, set my alert at the bottom of the trading range, and see what happens. So first alert goes off, and we are tapped into our first entry, right? So at this point, we're just waiting, we're waiting. Now, let's see something. Unfortunately, price never takes out this low. So we couldn't reduce our risk. We couldn't go risk free. We're waiting for this low to be taken out. So we are currently in our entry. So at this point, we obviously want this low to be taken out. And if we take it out, we'll be able to either one, reduce our risk, or two, we'll be able to go risk free, just depending on how you want to play it. And just to look, this was from 93 to 98, so about a 5 pip stop loss. Let's continue. So boom, we confirm. So at this point, what we can do is we can measure out our schematic. And what I'm going to be measuring out, or sorry, not our schematic, but our last drive. And that's that right there. So I want to place risk off of ideally 80%, and we could throw risk at 50% too. It's going to be less than it's at 90 to 95, so about 5 pips for that as well. And it looks like price just redistributed. So let me pause it real quick, or we could actually allow price just to play. It's okay. And we'll throw some risk off of 50 and 80. All right, so we'll drop our positions. That was our first entry. Now, as far as the first entry, this is how I played it, or this is how I would have played this first one. Since we are looking for our 80 and our 50% up here, it makes no sense to go risk free. So it makes the most sense to reduce our risk. Now, what this will allow, it'll allow us to get tapped into our 50 and 80%. Obviously covering this high, and this is the entry I actually caught. At the same time, it'll allow us to keep this entry, right? So what did this run to? Did it run to our 1 to 10? Okay, so we would have took our first partials at that 1 to 10, obviously. It's ran to about like a 1 to 11. Ay. Almost 1 to 12. And now we're waiting for her to come back up to us, right? And we can go up to the 5-minute for this. And press play. So keep in mind we have 2 entries. We'll pause it. We'll go down to the 1 minute, and we will drop our position tools. So our first entry is off of 80%, covering this high. So about a 2 pip stop loss. Obviously, we're looking to take it down to the low bare minimum. But my first target, where I really wanted to see, not my first target, but my overall main area I wanted to see price at least come down to before anything. I wanted to see price come all the way down here. This is what I wanted to see, which would have set us up for about a 1 to 57. Would have definitely been nice, right? But our first target is going to be at the break of this low. So about a 1 to 24. Now for our 50%, same stop loss, looking to come down to at the very least this low, but the main area we're looking to come down to would be that reacu, and that would give us about a 1 to 10, right? So let's play. So pause. So we get a really quick first reaction. at this time, at the break of this low, it was about a 1 to 14. I actually took my partials, if I'm not mistaken, right at about a 1 to 14. So right before we took out this low. And that was my first partial, specifically only on my 80%. On my 50%, I wanted to wait for my 1 to 10. So take the partials, I'm risk free, and I tell myself, okay, it's the end of the day. If we look at our sessions, it's getting close or getting near the end of the day. So at this point, if price were to come back up, I'm not going to have any limits because it doesn't make any sense to. I'll wait for a schematic and pretty much look to play it like that. So we allow price to do its thing. We go into Asian session. Now it is Frankfurt, London, and boom. I just saw we reaccumulated at the time of me waking up, and hopefully we didn't miss the boat. Let it load up. It's being a little slow. Okay. Alright. So now it is the 20th or the 15th. The 15th. Was that Friday? The 15th was a Tuesday. That's awkward. So it's a Tuesday, and we're getting up in the morning. We see price just accumulated. After our accumulation phase, we should start seeing reaccumulations. Obviously, this technically is a reaccumulation, but this is a reaccumulation. This is an accumulation within a reaccumulation. After this accumulation, we reaccumulate. So at this point, I'm like, let's throw risk at the reaccumulation. So I measure out my 50 and 80%. I'm trying to see if there's any confluence. No, there wasn't. Okay. Okay. So 50 and 80% will drop our long position tools off 50, off 80, covering the low, right? So that was a little under a pip stop loss. This was about 1.5 pips. Obviously, we added our spread to our entries, and realistically, I was telling myself, where was I looking to take this up to? And my first target was going to be this high. Now, why this high? It's ultimately because if I could protect myself, if I could protect my short and profit from it, that would be amazing, right? Prices, obviously, we see some institutions filling some long orders. That's what an accumulation is. So we know price could come up higher. So at that point, I really felt like it was the best thing to do was just to hedge and press play. Boom. So also keep in mind, this was that CPI news, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see CPI news came out right at 5:30, so I got into my entry at like 5:25-ish. CPI news comes out and goes absolutely berserk. Took my first partials, went risk-free, break even, and this is where I actually slipped up because look at what just happened. Look where price just tapped into. I completely lost sight on the higher time frame due to the fact that I was playing lower time frame. I was pretty much just scalping, and price taps right into our extreme. Price taps right into our extreme for about a 4 pip stop loss, 4.5 pip stop loss. Now, keep in mind, we're placing this entry for the back test, but I did not personally catch this. This is something that I had to go back and really see after the fact. But ultimately, these first two entries down here, just coming up to this high, we took the partials at a 1 to 14 and a 1 to 34. You know, really can't complain. Really cannot complain. Now, as far as this extreme, let's ask ourselves, where are we looking to take this to? Obviously, our first target would be about a 1 to 10, so ideally, this 1 to 13 area. And then, if we could, it would be nice to take this all the way down to make that new low, right? If we just tapped into our extreme, we would expect a new order flow low, which would give us about a 1 to 119, which is definitely going to take some time. So that's that. Now we can allow price to play a little bit, and we'll get into what happens on, I believe it was Friday. Let's actually scale up to maybe like the 15-minute. Alright, pause. Oh, slow down. Slow down. I did not mean to do that. That is quite unfortunate. Alright, so we hit our first partials as far as the extreme, right, at that 1 to 13 point. Now, as we're scaling down, just looking at this at the 5-minute time frame, could we agree this is our low, this is our low, this is the highest point in between that's maintaining the bearish order flow? Could we also agree this is a redistribution with a larger distro within it, with a smaller distro within it? Exactly. It looks pretty clean. Now, as we measure out the whole thing, if price comes into either 50 or 80% of the whole thing, we'll pretty much start watching for the redistro or for the distro. Now, we're also going to want to watch the top distro as our extreme for the order flow. So now it's just a waiting game. We'll pretty much wait for price to come up and give us some type of schematic. So she's walking up. We're at that 50%. All right, pause. So we're at the 50%, and it looks as if we may have either attempted to distribute, may have either started to attempt to distribute, or we just reaccumulated, right? Or we just reaccumulated. So at that point, we're now looking up here, and it looks once again as if we're attempting to distribute. And could we agree we have our climax to our AR, giving us our first change of character? We have secondary tests. I'd like to say up thrust, but unfortunately we don't trade back into 50%. So far, this is going to be our up thrust. And then we'll want to see either price trade back into 50% of our trading range and get the UTAD, or we'll like to see the break of structure and the exit of our trading range. What do we just do? So we have climax, AR, secondary tests, up thrust. Within our up thrust, we actually just distributed once again. So this is really something we'd like to see. We like to see those fractal distributions. We want to see the distro within the distro within the distro. And this is what gives us those A+ setups that we want to take. But ultimately, we're going to be measuring out our up thrust. 50 and 80%, and this is one of those trades that I actually took. Unfortunately, we did not get filled at our 80%, so I had 50% covering this high. Looking to take this down to, what was it? It was like 33382, 33383. 33382. That was the first area we were looking to take it down to, and it's simply because of that's where it maxed out at. But it's where we actually took our first partials on our next entry. So we allow price to play. We get tapped into 50%. I didn't drop the 80% because we didn't get tapped into it. But at this point, we understand what just happened. We just redistributed. Within that redistro, we have a distribution. So if we measure out this last drive here, 50 and 80%, looking for re-entries. Ideally. Now, if we measure out this last drive here, we see that 80% lands right beneath 50 and 80%, so there's not any crazy confluence, but we understand this is a solid area. So what I actually ended up doing is I personally looked to just take my order off of just the 80%. Now, we just missed an entry that I caught as well, and we'll kind of backtrack before it. So this is where we should be. So as of this time, I'm looking and placing risk off of this to take it down to that 33382 area, which will give this about a 1 to 20. And this is why this was my first target, was just because it gave me my 1 to 20 right there. And then you'll see it plays into like a reaccu. But at the same time, what did I say when this first formed? I said this either could be a distribution or it could be a reaccumulation. I'm going to trade what I see until I'm proven wrong. So what I see is our high before it, and our low maintaining, which means we see this as a reaccu. So at this time, I'm only in one trade from right here for the day. I'm shorting into my long to potentially short again. So as of right now, for this entry up here, I reduce my risk. sorry, this is off the 80%. Reduce my risk, and I'm looking to at least look to take this up here for our 1 to 10, right? So I press play. I get tapped in right here, obviously including spread, and as price is pushing up, I'm like, okay, one of two things are going to happen. Price is either going to push through, stop me out of these, or price is going to react from here and stop me out of this. So as price is pushing away, I'm like, okay, go risk free on everything and let the best man win. So we're risk free on everything. We get stopped out of the long, obviously. We're running on both of these shorts, and it's just time to let her do her thing. Now, where the first area I'm looking at taking my partials is down here, and the reason why, as we get down to the 1 minute, we see there's a reacu down here. So I told myself, if I start seeing signs of a potential signs of a potential accumulation in the reacu, I'll take my partials as it's already my 1 to 20. So she does her thing. We start seeing price accumulate. We got a mitigation, and once we got this mitigation from it here, is when I took my partials, and price just starts walking itself up, right? Where can we go up? She starts walking herself up. And now we're in Asian session. So Asian session, I'm not looking to take any trades off of it. I did see price react right there off of that accumulation. What I would have liked to see here, I would have liked to see price come around and sweep, not react off of it. I would have wanted price to sweep it and then look for an entry off of the sweep. But unfortunately, that obviously just doesn't happen. And going into Friday, this is what we get. Let's rewind. So here's my entry on Friday. So at the time, I understood, okay, we just got a manipulation. I measured it out. Let's actually see where we are relative to all that other price action. So that's still all higher. Got you. So I measured out the manipulation on Friday, and I saw that we got a clean distribution right into it. Shout out to one of my guys. One of my trading partners I saw caught the 50% entry, which was stupidly clean. Unfortunately, I wasn't looking to take it at that moment. I wasn't at the charts at 8:35, and I missed that first entry. So watch and repeat. I did come back and I saw this price action, and I wanted to catch it, but price just continued to redistribute. So I didn't give up. I decided, okay, let me throw some risk off of our redistribution. Where are we? Can we get the short off the redistro? Now, obviously, we could have played 50 and 80. I personally just played 50. It was Friday. I wanted to ensure I was filled into something, and I wanted to just get in and get out. Get in and get out. So now, ideally, where am I looking to take this? Obviously, the first area that looks decent is about a 1 to 6. Coming down into this reacu over here is about a 1 to 9. So really we want to ask ourselves, do we fill the 1 to 9 or 1 to 10, or do we feel we need that extra 1R pretty much? So let's say our 1 to 10 is here, but now what I'm going to tell myself is, as price comes down here, because this is a reaccumulation, if we see an accumulation, I'm taking a partials and going risk free, right? Hold up. That happened fast. That happened fast. Okay. So we saw the accumulation. It happened a little lower than we wanted to see it. So it just gave us about a 1 to 7, almost a 1 to 8. Now, here's how I ended up playing it. I saw the Acu play out. We had a nice little reaction from it, and I told myself, okay, if we come back into it, I'll take a small partials. If we come lower, cool. I took my partials for the day. I'll let it run until maybe 11, 12, and then I'll take my close out the position and move on to next week. But what ended up happening is we started seeing buyers come in. So I take my partials as we tap in, but keep in mind, we just tapped into an accumulation. And I was over trading for the day. Not over trading. I was done trading for the day. I was spending time with my daughters, but I was still kind of watching, coming back to the charts and seeing what was playing out. So we just had an Acu. We had another Acu, which if we push and break the high, it'll confirm the reacu, right? So now that we confirm the reacu, we could look for a potential re-entry off of this here. And let's say we want to take 50 and 80. Let's say we just want to take 50. Really doesn't matter. Do we get filled on both? Do we get filled on both? Price taps into the 50, just misses the 80, and she takes off. And she takes off, pushes and makes a new high. So obviously, at this point, we'd be looking to potentially hold these up into the new high, right? Now, why the new high? And it's because as we scale out, we understand that's where our first orders came from. So we would still be holding these. So if we kind of just go through and see what these all ran to, they all maxed out. Or no, these got stopped out. So this maxed out at about a 1 to 12. This order was a 1 to 10 and a 1 to 23 before stopping out. This order here, what is 33126? This order from the 80% that I did not catch was about a 1 to 19, not too shabby. The orders down here were about it looks like a 1 to 7 and a 1 to 20. As we scale down to our last few orders, this order obviously was about a 1 to 7 as well. We took that partials once we started seeing that accumulation, and once again, I did not take these, but where they maxed out at as of Friday were a 1 to 8 and a 1 to 20 if this one got tapped in, if you got filled including spread. I know it didn't tap into the exact entry on TradingView, but obviously that can change on your actual broker. So yeah, y'all, this was pretty much that back test that we've been needing to go through. We had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 entries. So 9 entry back test, and we saw a few 1 to 7s, few 1 to 10s, few 1 to 20s. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask them. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.